Welcome back, y'all. Texas Platinum, the last of the real water cooler talk shows. We have a special video for y'all today. We have my buddy Kyle Reyes here. He went to UT with me. He's a former South Lake Carroll Dragon offensive lineman. He's a member of Quinn Anon, and he's just one of my good friends, and he knows ball. Trevor and Matt have been just busy with work. Everyone's been busy, but Kyle's going to come in and help pick up the slack, and we're going to try to get out more content more often, weekly. So, yeah, this is Kyle, and I think y'all are going to like this guy. But it's a huge win for Texas this past weekend. Texas goes into Dallas and really just dominates Oklahoma in every phase of the game. You know, it started off a little shaky. I was like, here we go again. Penalties, everything was just ugh. And then, you know, something happened with that team. You know, I saw a gear that I didn't know they had. You know, it reminded me of last year's team where they just decided we're going to bully some kids and we're not losing this game. So I'll pass it to you, Kyle. What were your thoughts on the game? We were there together. We had a couple wax cut beers, but just take it where you want, Kyle. How does it feel to get that win in Red River?
Well, first off, thank you for letting me be a part of this show. I've been watching y'all's content for a long time, so this is very exciting for me to be on here with you, especially with the countless personal calls we do off screen where we're just talking ball back and forth. You know, I think me and you have about the same cut of our jibs, and we have a real chemistry when it comes to just talking Longhorn football. And I gotta agree with you. You know, man, I am feeling spicy this week. You know, Texas had a statement game here against the Sooners. Now, granted, yes, we still have questions along the line of why are we starting slow? We've addressed this now over the past, what is it now, 5 weeks or 6 weeks? Why are we still getting these penalties, these drive-killing holdings, false starts, ineligible formation, and so on? You know, I think we had a couple of drives that could have made the score get really out of hand, kind of give us the remnants of last year and even that 49-0 game where we just blow the doors off them and we, kill their will in the fourth quarter, and not in the fourth, but in the third quarter. So I feel like Texas fans can feel satisfied with the win. It is OU. We all hate OU, and it's a good win. You have all these nice little stats like Sark winning a top 10 ranked opponent team, beating one of them. Now the fun one that we all love yelling about, out of the past 4 games that we played OU, they haven't been able to score a touchdown. And the 745 plus some odd days now since OU has been able to get in the end zone against Texas. This is a good win, but I think the real ball knowers out there, the real people watching the Longhorns know they're not walking away satisfied. You had the appetizer, you maybe had half of your main course, but then instead of taking the to-go box and getting the dessert to go, you decide to walk out and it's 10 o'clock at night and you're like, I'm still a little hungry. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I kind of really feel like is going on in that Texas locker room. It was an every person, all hands on deck win with your defense providing you stops. 3 Mateer turnovers is amazing. You're getting us in good ball position on the field. You're getting Arch and that offensive line a chance to build a rhythm, build some momentum. But then number 2, look at this. You know, we talk about this all the time. I think even Kirk Herbstreit said it in the fourth quarter. Red River is good for at least one wacky special team score, and usually that team who makes that score wins the game. And sure enough, it was Texas with a special teams return of a punt. So, Texas fans should be very happy that this was a full team effort and a win, but definitely we still have a lot of questions on the offense. Why can't we start fast? And I didn't think we really had a chance to show off any red zone improvement just because we were winning in chunk plays and stuff like that. So I really want to get us another position like how we did against Ohio State. 4th and 1 on the inch line. Can our big guys up front power this thing into the end zone and finish a 16, 15 play drive? Because I think that's what we're going to need down the stretch to win a national championship. But first off, just go beat A&M, go win an SEC title.
Yeah, no, that's right on the money. I agree. I think that's a great analogy. We had a full course meal, but we want dessert now. We want more of that. It's a very cathartic win because really there's been nothing for this team to celebrate all season. It's been nothing but doom and gloom, and you're beating high school teams for 3 weeks like that. That's not fulfilling. So Texas finally put it together and had some success. But yeah, there's still a lot of holes, and Texas OU inherently kind of is a vacuum game. There's been years where OU goes to the playoff with Baker and they lose to a 5-7 Texas team. So this game doesn't necessarily dictate the outcome of the rest of the season. So I really hope that Sark and that locker room, and I trust them too, are treating this Kentucky game and Mississippi State and every game from here on out like a SEC championship type game. I want to get a little more in the weeds on the game though before we just kind of look at the rest of the outcome of the rest of the projection of the season. Offensive line, circling back to that, Kyle. Uh, Nick Brooks, man, he got the start at left guard, and it was shaky at first. Yeah, I mean, hard to blame him. This guy's a tackle, true freshman, and then he just gets thrown out there against one of the best D lines in the country, and those grown men, and he was moving people around, man, and he settled in and he showed some great speed. Like he was getting upfield, hitting DBs, hitting. He was hunting. He was hunting. He was staying busy, finding work. So that's just such a nice contrast to what we had with Connor Stroh. Bless that guy's heart, but he just can't move like that in the SEC. So that's encouraging to see that our offensive line stepped up. DJ Campbell played well. Cole Hudson kind of still a weak link, but everyone else kind of held their own that game, I think. So that's very exciting because that's probably one of the best fronts we'll see all season. Georgia included. So that's very promising. Trey Wisner, man, the Sooner killer. He's batting 3 for 3 in these rivalry games. He played great at A&M. He played great at OU last year, and then this year he kind of just willed our team into that victory mode. With his just finding ways to break explosive plays after explosive plays and keep drives alive. And lastly, I'll talk about Arch here, man. Arch Arch was I thought he played great, man. He was right on time. He was making clutch throws, stepping up in the pocket. That's what Kyle and I always preach on. You got to step up in the pocket. And Arch was he just makes it look so easy, evading pressure, rolling out, extending plays, and the receivers are finally kind of getting on board with that scramble drill because that's so huge in this offense because the O-line's not great yet. And Arch is going to buy some time. So these receivers have to find some green and find a soft spot. And we started to do that a lot against OU. So we need more of that going forward. But I thought the offense played as good as you can ask for against that defense in those circumstances. A big step forward, and I hope they keep it coming. But we'll see. We'll see. I just don't want it to be a one-off, like Kyle was saying. We need to continue to build on this, and every game is a playoff game now because I don't think 9-3 is going to get you in the playoffs. So unless we're very lucky, so you got to approach every game like it's win or go home.
Yeah, absolutely, man. One of the things I want to staying on this offense is we just have not seen the consistency. And you can say, people are going to call me right now and they're going to be texting me and they're going to see this and you're going to say, man, why are you so heavily critical of this Texas offense? You've always been critical. You've had these outrageous opinions back when Connor Williams was on our offensive line. Me and you were part of the whole not really buying the Quinn stock when this happened. And even now it's been a lot more of the same thing. I'm being overly critical of this offensive line. I'm not going to say his name today because I want to give him some grace because it is a win, but there is a certain right tackle that I'm not a fan of. And there's been a couple times where I've called you just like, can we not find anyone else? Is this because of our injuries that we had sustained during camp? The reason we can be critical right now as Texas fans is because we just haven't gotten any consistency. I think that's the one thing that we saw last year that we're still kind of looking for. And even back in Sark's second year when he beat Oklahoma 49-0, we would have these longer spurts of 2-3 games in a row where the offense was humming, whether it was Bijan and Roshan running the ball, doing that two-handed, basically that hammer and anvil strike. They were doing it well. Or, we would have those Quinn games where he would finally show us what all the hype was about with 3+ touchdown passes, maybe even rolling out a couple times and getting a couple yards with his feet. We'd have these Unfortunately, though, we haven't had that consistent running in the game. Going back to our schedule, Ohio State, my biggest takeaway from the Ohio State game was the meme video on TikTok where it was two Ohio State offensive linemen just absolutely manhandling our guy in a double team with his legs playing it straight in the dirt. That showed we lost the trenches up there. San Jose State, we didn't blow these guys out until the fourth quarter. We never really killed their will. We were still looking slow. We looked like we were still missing our identity. UTEP, let's just throw that out the window because we all have our feelings about the UTEP game. And then we finally in week 4 do what we do to Sam Houston. I told you about that game saying we need to put up 40 plus points, which we did. We put up 55. We need to shut these guys out and make this look like a total slaughter because we needed some confidence going into the bye week to prep for Florida, which we unfortunately saw what happened there, and get ready for this SEC schedule. And we had this great performance finally after 4 weeks. We go through a bye week, you think, and me and you are both saying, hey, that's Sark's bread and butter. SEC play after a bye or conference play after a bye. He has a very good record. He's I think he's like what 3-2 now after this unfortunate Florida loss. But that was the whole thing. We thought that he was gonna be 4-1. He was gonna scheme this thing up really well. Gonna show off SEC with a bang. We caught fire with Sam Houston. Now we can do this, and the team looked like a total debacle. So coming into this Oklahoma game and still having the offense start slow but finish strong is kind of that team last year that Quinn Ewer come in the late in the third and finally open up the can on these guys, but we haven't had that consistency in the past that is giving us that confidence in this team going forward. The rest of the schedule, we could say we won about this week, but this is not an easy schedule in the SEC, in my opinion. And especially with the transparency that the NIL portal and everything has put into the game of college football, it is every given Saturday. Anyone can show up and beat anyone. Whatever team you're going to show up with is the team you're going to have to go to bat with. And sometimes you're going to have a bad day and sometimes you're going to have a great day. I think this Oklahoma team is actually very good, was very good, is still very good. They just showed up with a bad day because of all the hype. And as Texas fans, we can kind of, even though how hard it is for me to say it, we can kind of find some similarities in this because look what happened with us in Ohio State. All that junk, all that noise surrounding our quarterback, and kind of put some unrealistic expectation on him, and we go up and take that L in Columbus. This whole week leading up to OU was Mateer this, Mateer that, Chipotle this, Doctor whatever his name that, Message boards this. Is Mateer playing? Is he not playing? What does Venable say? Well, Venable said he's not playing, most unlikely. Now he's probable. First time ever you've seen in college football, which apparently, that's a thing. It showed that this Oklahoma team is like any other college team. When the noise got too much about the external outside the four walls, they crumbled. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to just come back with the vengeance and run through their schedule because holy crap, their schedule is even worse than ours. Yeah. But it shows that every team, there is no more the sense that the teams are these incredible juggernauts like the Nick Saban teams. Every team can be beaten if you show up on the road, packing a run game, ability to dominate the trenches, and just the ability to stay composed and play fundamental disciplined football, you can most likely win on the road. And that's what Texas is going to need coming up on this long stint on the road.
Yeah, and these are two lower tier teams, I guess, on the road. But like you said, the gap is not what it used to be, and it's all a lot more of a leveled playing field. You can definitely lose in Starkville, you can definitely lose in Lexington. So you got to pack your defense, pack your run game. But I like how you went to the schedule because I wanted to touch on this. I think our schedule dynamic is just we got unlucky this year. Not saying our schedule's horribly a death row. It's a hard schedule. But the way it was laid out is just like a crappy situation for us. We don't play our first SEC home game for like 3 weeks. Vanderbilt in November. A&M, only has one SEC home game left on their schedule. They've already played like three or four of them. It's just wild how we opened up at Ohio State, a war. Then we had three high school teams, then a bye week, then a road trip to Florida, which is just a lose-lose situation. Wounded Animal, Florida, on the road, sellout crowd, and we weren't ready for that game. We got beat. They're talented. We lost that game, and then you go to Dallas, and that's a crazy game. Luckily, we pulled it out. But now you're going into these Hornets nests. Lexington, that's going to be a sellout, I'm sure. Texas comes to town, night game, and Hail State. So there's no layups. We didn't have this nice runway this year. So we need to forge our own momentum going forward. But yeah, so any other things on the OU game? I just want to give a shout out to Lance Jackson, Brad Spence, all the defenders, man. Colin Simmons. There was a lot of Texas got whipped against Florida on defense for the first time I can remember since like maybe 2022. We got whipped on, like we got manhandled defensively, and they responded, man. They went out there and they had Mateer in hell all game. So I trust this defense very much, and it's just good to see them bounce back in such a big way on a stage like that. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, moving forward, you got Kentucky. I'll touch on them a little bit right here. They're not a great team. They're going to run out with Cutter Boley at quarterback, who he's a licensing guy, but he's a gunslinger. But he'll throw interceptions. He's nothing. I will say stylistically they're kind of like Florida, so that could pose some potential thing. They're big and they're physical, and they're good for one game a year where they get someone. Last year they got Ole Miss, almost beat Georgia as well. So that's worrisome. We better show up on Saturday. But I also want to touch on Jarrett Gibson. He entered the portal, which is unfortunate because running back has been a position for us that's been very much gutted this year, and you can argue that's kind of the reason our offense is kind of sputtered out of the gate in a lot of ways because there's no consistency with a balance in terms of like a run game, pass game, complementary football type thing. Wisner finally looks healthy, but we ran him like 20 something, 27 times in Dallas. So we don't want to, just wear him out. We need some legs, some fresh legs to spell Wisner down the stretch. And Gibson leaving kind of hurts. So now you're hoping Baxter can come back, but Baxter's kind of like a chupacabra right now. Like you see him here, you see him there, but he's usually hurt, which is unfortunate because he's a great leader, a great pass pro, and he's a tough runner. Um, so that leaves Christian Clark and James Simon. James Simon, number 31, that guy's going to be a player for us. I love the way he runs. He's got that textbook Jonathan Brooks Texas running back vision where he'll cut back, make people miss in a phone booth, and seems to always fall forward. So I think he's going to be very good. It's just a question of how fast can we get him up to speed, because there's going to be a lot more asked of him, especially if Baxter's out going forward the next couple weeks. Like it's going to be Simon pretty much at RB2 and then Christian Clark, of course. So that's something to watch. But I do like offensively how we kind of changed our approach a lot. We kind of found something in that OU game. I'm not saying it's going to translate to every matchup, but our offense has really just had trouble finding an identity just in general this season. Sark wanted to be under center, deep bomb, big play action, 7-step dropbacks with Arch, and we just don't have the O line for that. So we definitely kind of went back to the Quinn Ewers offense in a way a lot this past Saturday with a lot of outside zone, a lot of dump offs to the running back in the flats. Just the depth of target average was like 4 yards now, which is a huge difference from what it had been. At Florida, we were just waiting for these vertical routes to develop and taking sacks because they wouldn't develop in time. So I think Sark's really kind of found a niche, and I hope he can build on that because the goal right now is to win in Kentucky, win in Starkville, and get home where you play probably a ranked Vanderbilt. And then if you can win that, you have momentum back, and you're 7-2 going into Athens with everything still on the line. So um, that's kind of what it looks like going forward.
You know, we're going to go back to the pillars of life in football here. And to anyone who hasn't already know this, there's the pillar one is run the damn ball. That is the one thing that me and you have agreed upon that. And we go back through Sark's 5 years now at Texas, he's had Bijan, he's had Roshan, he had He's had Brooks. He's had all these guys, and we've had this carousel. And I'm going to go back to his press conference post Florida. We've had this carousel, and now what he now calls a Rolodex of running backs is running back by committee. But the one thing that he did have in years past and hasn't had this year was one back did distinguish themselves. Before it was Bijan. Then before Brooks got hurt, it was Jonathan Brooks. And then when he went down, Baxter kind of came in. We kind of thought going into that season, Baxter's the guy. Baxter all of a sudden pops his Achilles in camp, and now we have Blue, my boy Blue, who's now playing for the Dallas Cowboys, and Wisner becoming the bell cow. Was basically Blue kind of being the main back last year, with Wisner just being the ground and being the thunder right behind him. This year we kind of thought, hey, Baxter's back. We're gonna get him, and we get him back, and he's gonna be number one. We have to. Well, you can't just throw Wisner to the. In that sense, I think us as Texas fans and even a couple of the analysts kind of disrespected Wisner in the beginning of the season by just kind of throwing him, saying, "Oh, you're going to be RB2 again." After Blue, you're going to get replaced by Baxter. Blue's going to get replaced by Baxter. You're still RB2. And as we saw, it just we almost kind of it felt like we pushed Baxter back. Originally that was said at the beginning of the season we could hold off and maybe let him rest a couple more weeks, and I felt like we kind of rushed him, and that's why we're not getting the consistent Baxter right now. I almost kind of feel like we rest him for Kentucky and then maybe try him for Mississippi State on the road. But if Wisner's still the hot hand, I'd say rest him there, and then we'll just take him for we'll take the dual back approach for Vanderbilt, because that's when we're going to need. I really will say Vanderbilt. We need every weapon available by then, because you're right. It is a ranked team. I'm more or less going to say they're going to be. I'm going to be bold and say that they're still ranked above us. Right now it's 17 versus a 21. I believe they'll still be ranked above us. I actually think they might only have one loss, being that Alabama loss, before they see us. But my thing is this. We haven't found that identity yet of running the ball. Who's our number one guy? I think Trey Wisner did it to this past week at OU, that he is the guy. He needs to be RB1. And, unfortunately, though, I don't know if you remember or recall this from the end of the game. You kind of saw him take a rip shot at the very end, that last little kind of pay dirt first down drive, and he kind of hobbled off. So I'm like, so you're right. This offensive line is not giving him the glancing blows that they gave Blue and him last year. He's taking some bone crunching hits. He's not going to last long. So we definitely need to see some improvement from this offensive line to grow off of this game going into Kentucky. I almost kind of want to treat this game as this Kentucky game as last year when we were playing those tune-up games, because you kind of want to. It should be the case. There's a reason the Stoops are not coaching in the college football anymore, and they're coaching in the UFL. It's because they're kind of dinosaurs here, and they've never really been able to continue their success in the drafting when in this new NIL era. I think just talent wise, we should kill these dudes. But I think the main question is, what does our injury list look like still? Because OU game, no matter what, whether it's a 49-0 blowout or a 56-42 shootout, Texas and OU guys always come out a little banged up. They're a little extra sore. They need a little extra time to do some rehab. And, this is going to be it's a very emotionally draining game. So we got to see how these guys respond, show the maturity that they can still play and compete. Kentucky I think, is a great game for us right now, and I think it's a good matchup for us because we kind of need that little bit of a pushover situation. Now, knocking on wood, they're not going to Florida our ass right now, but it's still we still have that situation of it's Kentucky. They're almost treated as the Kansas here in the SEC.
Yeah.
But this is the game that you kind of get all the last minute the hangover out of your system. You get it all gone because you got to relock in for Mississippi State. I'll tell you this now. Mississippi State is 4-2. I've said this to you now, I think this year alone, and it's very true across anyone. If you're a 500 team or above, you're a pretty darn good college football team. If you're in this week today and your team, and this is for anyone, is above 500, You can go into any game the rest of your season and say, there's a chance for us to win this thing if we just do X, Y, and Z. Mississippi State has upsetted in week 2 or 3 Arizona State, the premier new powerhouse of the Big 12, who is still fighting right now in that top echelon of the Big 12 for a chance to go repeat and play in the Big 12 championship game. These guys are dangerous. They're 4-2. They can win. They are here to win games, and we are still early enough in the SEC schedule where every team still has a little bit of a chance to make this through, get some impressive wins. Mississippi State's schedule is prime for them if they can just somehow magically, not saying they will, but if magically they could win out, they're still in the hunt for this SEC title game and even a playoff berth. But that just shows you this how even this late in the season, any team, because of how the NIL portal and everything else has affected college football, how alive a lot of these teams still are. Now, Texas needs to get healthy. I think that is the number one thing. This nagging injury bug that we've had that's affecting Baxter to anyone else. We got back Mohammed, but now he might be potentially banged up. I don't know, just because of the OU game, natural wear and tear. Other guys, you got to get healthy because this backstretch we need everyone. And number two, we need to get more consistent in the run game. I think we now have our guy. We now have our bell cow. We now know who we can unanimously say should be RB1. Doesn't mean RB2 is going to get no love. They're going to be the cherry on top of this ass kicking Sunday. But we now have our guy. Your offensive line needs to seriously put in a lot of time. As an former offensive line myself, this is where you and your relationship with your running back really comes into effect. Are you guys hanging out afterwards? Are you going to Whataburger? Are you staying and watching film together to build these tendencies of, all right, I know so and so is going to take 2 seconds out of his drop set to get engaged with this guy. He's usually going to have an outside hand on his back end. It's going to be wide, so it might look like a holding. I need to make sure if I'm going to hit anywhere near this guy, I need to hit him in the backside B gap or you learn those tendencies. That's how we're going to mitigate these holding calls. Number two, now to mitigate the false start calls, that's just called, you got to keep your eye on the damn ball. You got to hold your pee. You got to be ready for it. The unfortunately now, guys, the label of inexperience. This is a young offensive line. We're replacing 4 dudes. Hey, man, we're too late in the season. We got to throw that crap out the window. There's no more giving excuses. You got to just – you've now played in OU, which is a very nerve-wracking game. This team has played in Columbus. You have also played in the swamp, dude. It's not fine. You're gonna get one more big test of Athens, but the rest of these you got to be ready for, man. And then you're gonna get your 2 toughest games. 2 of the tougher games on the remainder of your schedule at home in front of your own home crowd. So, that shouldn't really affect you too much and you should be ready. So we should hopefully by this point now, a good thing for this offensive line to show growth is to eliminate their false start penalties and eliminate their holding penalties now. If we can get that, I think we score on maybe 2 or 3 more drives. We're now going to be putting up the 30, 40 points again like we did last season. And in the SEC, 40 points wins you the football game. I think that's a fact. This ain't the Big Ten anymore. This is SEC slobber nose football. And when it comes to the dink and dunk approach that you've been talking about, I am going to now look to the Big Ten because look at the Big Ten. Who are the 2 teams at the top? Cignetti's Indiana and Ryan Day's Ohio State. Both of them are these death by 1,000 cut offenses, short 5-yard outs, 5-yard ins, stops, nothing really too crazy. It's like that scene from Top Gun when Goose is talking to Maverick about Iceman. That's Iceman. That's how he flies, ice cold and collective. He's going to do everything by the book. Second you get bored or get frustrated and do something stupid, he's got you. That is now the new. I think that this year the trend of the offense that's going to be successful is the dink and dunk. Last year, it was whichever team had a run game, you're going to win games. It didn't matter how well your passing was. If you could run the ball last year, you won games. Now, you got to run the ball, but you know what? If you control the clock by doing short passes, screens, running duo, stretch, and all that stuff, now you're becoming a more complete offense, and that more complete offense is the one that's going to win a majority of your games and probably make it to your conference title. So, in my opinion, yes, I miss the play action. I miss all the reverses and the crazy three-legged handoff where it's behind the back and stuff like we saw last year. But unfortunately, I think this year is who's going to be the most disciplined team and who can execute their playbook to perfection. That's the team that's going to win. Not no more of the flashy plays. It's control the clock. I think that's going to be the theme going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because people forget that like the clock rules were changed a couple years back, maybe 1 or 2 years back, where the clock runs a lot more now. Like it only stops like in the last 2 minutes. Like if you go out of bounds, the clock still runs. It's the game has been condensed a lot, and because of that, a lot of the scores around the country are lower. There's not many teams, averaging 40 a game anymore. It's a lower scoring league now across the board. And yeah, it's all about controlling drives, ball control, and shout out Sark, taking points when you can get them. I was so encouraged to see him take that field goal, in the first half against OU, 4th and 4 at the goal line or whatever. Sark of week 1 goes for that, no doubt. And
Oh, of course. He
Sark,
even said it in his press conference. He would have gone for it.
yeah, yeah. Sark knew that he was going to be in a rock fight, and points matter, and situational football matters. And it's just mentally for the offense, you drive down the field, have a good drive, overcome adversity, convert on 3rd down, and you walk away with no points. Like that wears on you as an offense, as arch and the O line. So seeing those points go on the board are huge. So I agree. I agree, Kyle. Um, to cycle back to our next 2 games, I agree. Stark feels scary. Levy has had success against PK. I mean, there's no way around it. Last year, Hale State was terrible, but they were one of our tougher games. I know Arch started like his first SEC start. Arch played great that game. Like their Mississippi State offense gave our defense problems, and they were able to move the ball and control the game in the first half. So walking into that, I'm happy it's not a night game. I'm happy it's a day game. But yeah, these are not give me. So what I want to see, I do believe that Florida game was kind of like a baptism, especially for Arch. I think that kind of expelled all demons, all yips, whatever you want to call it, because he was just playing backyard football, just getting nailed. Just, just he wasn't thinking anymore. He was just trying to get the ball downfield and evade a sack. That's all he was doing. And then that continued with OU. He was just playing. There were no yips, not a single bad throw that I can recall. He missed a couple of reads here and there, but he's not. I mean, he's not going to be a perfect finished product yet. He's like in his 7th or 8th start. So I think that was huge. I hope we continue on this trend line. I want to see us beat Kentucky and handle Kentucky. We're not going to blow them out, I don't think, on the road, but I want to see us be in control of that game. I don't want to be, sweating bullets in the fourth quarter when we're playing against the worst team in the SEC. Like, let's go out and handle business. Let's show that we have improved and that we're continuing to improve and that we're going to become a team that no one wants to play. Because everyone wrote us off. Everyone wrote us off. It was all the haters. It was their Super Bowl when we started off 3-2 and Arch looked bad. But they have this thing called Texas derangement syndrome, Arch Manning derangement syndrome, where uh, Arch is improving, and there's no way there's no arguing against it. And our offensive line, I think, is improving too. Our defense is going to be good no matter what, I believe. So if we continue to run on this trend, we can be a dangerous team down the stretch, and there's no reason we shouldn't. We have all the talent in the world. So I want us to win, play a clean game in Kentucky, get our guys healthy, like you said, and I want to show that we're going to be not only a team that can win these games on the road, but like we're a scary team again because it was nothing but disrespect for Texas the whole past 2 months of the year. It was a great day for hate watching Texas for Sooner fans and Aggie fans the whole opening month of the season, but I want to see us start, getting that edge back that we had the last couple seasons.
No, I agree with that too, man. My biggest thing is we still are going to always have a question now about our defense. Are we going to get this defense of Florida? Because unfortunately, it's the kind of the same thing that everyone's going to still says about Alabama from week 1. You're like, Joel Klatt said this. It's like, even if you right the ship, I'm still going to remember that week 1, that ugly team mentality is still somewhere in there. Alabama was on a whole different level with, ordering Uber Eats at 2 a.m, sneaking girls in and out of their hotel and everything down there in Tallahassee, but I don't blame them. It's Tallahassee, Florida. But here's my thing with us and how bad our performance was at Florida, especially also now seeing that the word domination up front was said again. That's 2 times now that our unbeatable defense who can do no wrong saved us countless games last year. That's 2 situations now this year where we were physically dominated up front. You know, we didn't even in Georgia, we just didn't get a push. We weren't
Yeah.
physically dominated. So now this Georgia team is still good. They're still dangerous. They're also in that fight for your life and your right to party mentality because they have because of their results. I forgot who they lost to, but it's gonna be it's a tough sled for all of us. The SEC is gonna be one of those things where it's gonna come down to to that week, which is gonna be for us. It's Arkansas week, that November 22nd, right before Thanksgiving, and Texas A&M. That's really when we're going to find out who. Yeah, I think that's when we're going to find out who the final 4 contestants are to get into the SEC title game, and whether the Lone Star shootout that we have at the end of the year is actually again going to contribute to someone going to the SEC title game. Is A&M going to hold their smoke for the next 6 weeks? Or are we going to be able to continue building and getting that 1% better? I don't know. That's the big question right now that we all have across the board. But you know what? I believe this defense will not be tested until Vanderbilt. So we get 2 weeks, but they're going to get 2 back-to-back games where we're going to truly find out. And if our defense can keep it to where they're scoring less than 15 or even under 21, I then say we should be very, very comfortable going into the back half of the season and potentially a playoff run. And because that also means we're most likely have won all of these games up to that point.
Yeah, it's the Wild West in the SEC. No one knows what's going on. There's like a cluster of eight teams that are all undefeated in the SEC or have one loss, and they all play each other. So it's just going to be chaos. A&M sitting real pretty because they look at the rest of their schedule. They don't have that many tough tests besides like us and LSU, maybe, and LSU's suspect. So A&M's in a good spot to get one of those spots. Same with Bama because they're undefeated in the league and they've already passed a couple of their tough tests. But there's still a lot of carnage that's going to occur. Missouri's in there, Vanderbilt, LSU, Tennessee, Georgia. So no one's going to know anything about like how the landscape's going to end until the last couple weeks of November. So Kyle, I have a question for you. What do you think? Okay, now that we kind of know this team a little bit, 6 games in, what do you think the ceiling is for this team? Because it's a lot different than last year's team. It's probably a worse team at this point. It's a worse team than last year's team. But do you think they have that same type of, if they keep putting it together, a playoff semifinal type ceiling, or are we a very young team, which we are, especially on offense, and we're kind of going to be just in the mix this year, but next year is the year? Like, what do you think the ceiling is for this team?
So let me just tell you this, Matt. Right now we are 4-2. Last year, when we had a really good team and everyone was really on us and was like, Texas is Texas, we ended the season 13-3. Okay? Because we lost to Georgia twice and then we lost to Ohio State. So we can still say that this team is not as good talently as last year, but I believe we can still provide, you know, a pretty decent season even with 2 losses. I believe I believe the ceiling still because of the culture that Texas has now produced. And I really want to kill this whole Sark can't win the big game thing. They're taking records back from when he was at USC and all these other stops, and ESPN kind of construed it with what's going on. But at Texas, he's done pretty good for us. I don't really say he has a big game issue. You know, because he gets up for the games that count. He got up for Michigan. He got up for A&M coming back to the conference. He got up for OU to to play them again and beat them there. He got up for Clemson and Arizona State. Any playoff game is a really tough game to play.
Yeah.
And even the year before that, when we lost to Washington, he beat everyone. We beat Alabama. We beat Houston. We beat TCU. We beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. Those were good teams. And I just don't like the feeling that people are still, especially with the recent news that's come out in college football with what happened with Franklin. I feel like they're still trying to just find the punching bag. Who's the next guy and the next big program that has a memeable coach when it comes to can't win the big game because everyone sees it because our big games are on prime time,
Yeah.
Fox, ABC, 6 o'clock at night, college game days there is us. And no one likes us because
Yeah.
they wish they were us. But that's the thing. So that's the thing, man. I think that this team's expectations with Sark is still an SEC title appearance.
I think so.
I'd like for us to win it because I believe it's very open right now. No team in the SEC looks unbeatable to us except Florida because we can't play them again. Because I'm just going to tell you now, their hopes are done. We can't avenge the Florida loss. That sucks. But we could easily see Ohio State in the playoffs. It might not be the semifinals, hopefully, God willing. It might be the quarters, or at hell, we might be in that situation where we're going to Columbus again in the first round playoff. I say if we make it to the playoffs, it's a successful season. That is my opinion. Now, where we exit does not count, and it does not matter to me. But how we exit, that is what's going to speak volumes. Are we going to exit? Like I just said, we could be first round of the playoffs. We're going back to Columbus to play Ohio State, and they just come off a Michigan loss. Because I'll be straight up with you. The Wolverines, no matter what anyone says about what happened with USC, have a very favorable schedule to show up and stay in it, getting up to Ohio State. Okay? So, Ohio, and I'm just going to tell you now, because until proven otherwise, Michigan whoops Ryan Day's butt.
Right.
It's going to be 5 in a row. Are we going to get the same Ohio State sleeping giant that donkey stomped Tennessee in week 1 while we were all enjoying life against Clemson? Because if that's the case and we go to Ohio State again, yeah, we're losing. Exit first round. It could be 70-3. Then I'm concerned because that's pitiful. Or if we make it through the first round and we see them or anyone or like a Miami and we win and we only lose by a touchdown or a last minute field goal, it's a 1-score game. I'm saying, you know what? We made it through the season where no one else thought we were good. There's no longer the conversation of, are we only going to get Arch Manning for 1 year? We're going to get him for the remaining 2 seasons that he's eligible with us because he's going to have to do everything in his power to rebuild his draft stock after this 4-game debacle that he started with. Again, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. It just showed a little bit of the inexperience, and he has to just rebuild it if he wants to be that first-round draft pick again. Or if he wants to have the goal of winning the Heisman, he's going to have to stay a couple years and rebuild that trust for the nation because of 4 weeks. But he's doing that right now.
Yep.
We'll get him going forward, but also you can then have the momentum going into 2026. I do not believe, and I'm not going to say I'm abandoning the Horns now, but this team is not a national championship team.
Yeah.
We could say that with last year's team. We could say it with the year before. This team is our reload team. We're reloading. It's probably whatever we get is what we get. We shouldn't throw a fit, but we do have the high standards of we should at least be competing in the SEC championship game, if not winning it, and making a competitive exit of the CFP.
Yeah. Kyle, I hope this happens. I think you're kind of jumping the gun a bit. We are 4-2. We're different though. We are different than the average Joe that's 4-2. It could be, and this is what I hope it is. I hope it's like an Ohio State situation where we just get hot and we just start rolling like they did last year. Like they were not a great team during the year. I mean, they were good. They were a very good team, but they got whipped by Michigan and they lost to Oregon, and then something flipped in that locker room, and they went and just started blowing playoff teams out. I mean, that
It's
game
called
last
pepper
year.
spray.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
called pepper spray. And getting a flag planted in your own stadium by your hated rival and
yeah,
decide to become a meme on the internet for having more fight in the post game than the actual game. That's what happened. It's they got embarrassed at the end of the day because you also at the end of the day lost to a Michigan team who decided to take the forward pass and throw it in the trash for a whole year.
yeah. If y'all can
So that
tell, if y'all can tell, Kyle's got some allegiance, secondary allegiance to Michigan. Um, but but yeah, no, I get it, Kyle. I see the vision, man. I don't think 9-3, no matter how you slice it, Texas gets in unless there's just chaos everywhere. I think you have to win out, which makes it hard because you got Athens, which has been our kryptonite. But and then A&M could be tough this year too, but we kind of just own them. So even if they are a top five team, I think we can still handle them. But still, a lot of tricky games on that schedule, and you don't have any more mulligans now, so that kind of adds to it. But I do think we're for sure getting Arch back next year. If he comes back for 2 more years, that'd be even better. I expect him next year to be like a complete quarterback and kind of just be a no doubter first rounder. I think we're going to reload in the portal and get some good elite Decorian Moore type receivers with to complement Arch because we have solid receivers, but we don't have anything like surefire first rounders like we have had the last couple of years with AD,
Mhm.
Worthy, and Golden, and even Isaiah Bond was dynamic. So I think we're lacking that, and I think we'll have that next year. The O line will grow up, but yeah, back to this season. I think the goal is. I hate to say 9-3. I think the goal is 10-2. I think the goal is to make the playoff. I agree with that, Kyle. But I also agree this team has too many flaws to win a national championship, even if we do get hot and everything comes together. And
Mhm.
I said the same thing about last year's team, honestly. I was like, this team is very flawed. They're great, but they're very flawed. Luckily, we had that great defense to rely on. But Quinn would fall over if anything came in the pocket, he would fall over and get hurt half the time. Quinn played great a lot of the time too. I don't want to just trash him because he did play good at Kyle Field for the most part until he wanted to start giving the ball away. But my point is, both of these teams have been flawed. Last year's was a little less flawed than this year's, and we had superstars last year, which hopefully can become that. Hopefully Arch can kind of become that. But we don't have a Golden walking through that door. We don't have a guy like Jaden Blue with that type of explosive speed, which I think was a misjudgment by Sark. We don't have that veteran O line to lean on. We don't have Gunnar Helm necessarily in the pass game, although Endries is good, and I wish we would utilize him more. But I think that the defense is it's pretty close to last year's. It's maybe a step behind, but the defense is still more than good enough to win a national championship with. But the offense really needs to come along. Um, but yeah, I think the goal is to continue to build this thing up and just get hot and just see if we can just, crash the party, make the playoff and see what happens. But I think more importantly, I think we're building for 2026. I've always said this, casual fans like Josh Pate will come on here and say that 2025 is the year that everyone in Texas was pointing to. And that's factually untrue. It was always 2026, because a lot of our contributors are underclassmen right now. And we had a lot of attrition last year to this year. So it's all building to 26. You get Arch back and a lot of these guys on defense and the whole offense pretty much. So that's going to be the year. But let's see what we can do this year. I don't want to sell this team short because talent wise, we have more talent than pretty much everyone left on the schedule besides maybe Georgia. A&M's got talent too, but there's no reason why we can't just wreak some havoc down the stretch.
I'm going to go with you on this. Let's be realistic here. Let's call a realistic ball game here. Okay, let's bring it to brutally honest conversation now. Let's be from a 500 story looking down. If we're going to go off what the results have told us in the past, we're probably losing the game to Georgia.
Yeah,
You're going to Athens. That is a tough environment. That's tough. Okay? We haven't beat them. Kirby's still Kirby. They got big dudes, and if it's going to come down to get in a phone booth and slug it out, we're going to lose that game. Let's just be. You don't slug it out with Georgia and hope to win. And I don't care what team you are. That just does not happen. The only team who can do that, and it showed, was Alabama. But even then, it wasn't the Saban Alabama
Yeah.
slugfest. A&M, we have always seen it, except last season. It's still just it's in my opinion, it's in the Aggies' blood. It's in their culture, it's in their school, and all of them fake military SOBs who love fish camp and it's like the highlight of their life even over their wedding day, and they just can't wait to put their first child into the cult. A&M still has a mid-season implosion loading in my opinion. I have to say they do because you know what?
It's
It's a
all,
safe thing to say because it has happened so many times. Now, granted, Texas A&M has had some seasons where they had the wrecking crew defense and that Chu Choi, whatever, who played for the Cowboys and stuff like that. They had a nice little run back in the early 2000s where they had a 5-game win streak on us and all that things, and they were good and they were winning and had 10 plus win seasons. But in my opinion, this might be the great coaching match for A&M because he's the cult leader and he loves making the Kool-Aid but not having to drink it, and he loves having all of his followers. But I'll just tell you this. A&M's players just I don't think have the maturity, not the talent, the maturity of teams and players that you're going to see go to the NFL on a consistent basis. Okay? And so because of that, I don't know A&M's schedule, nor do I care about it. I believe though that they have some solid games left in their back pocket they still got to play. I'm pretty sure don't they have an Alabama game they have to play at some point in time or
no, they
something like
don't. They have
they don't.
their tough games left are at Missouri, at LSU, and at Texas.
Yeah,
So
well,
there's not,
okay. I might need to restate my
yeah,
statement here.
that's the
I don't
thing.
know. Ugh.
They look
I need to
good.
restate.
They look
But
improved. They do.
but I'll okay. I'll give them this. That LSU is going to be a tough team. That's a tough game for them. They could lose that. I
Yeah, they
think
could.
that's a coin flip game. Um, and who was the other one? LSU and who else?
They play at Arkansas, but Arkansas is terrible. But it would be very on brand for them to somehow lose that game. At Missouri, at Texas, they like I said, they've played all of their home games, SEC games, in the front
Hmm.
half of the season against Auburn, Florida, and Mississippi State. So winnable games, and they've taken care of business. Credit to them; they've looked solid. But yeah, it could. I could see what you're saying, but I think that they are a little different than this year. I think that they're in prime position to make a playoff, but I don't think that they have like you have to learn how to win, and maybe they're doing that now. But I don't trust an A&M team ever to like, and not saying they can never do it, but to get over that hump and like beat Texas, beat LSU, make the playoff, win a game in the playoff, not implode, not implode, but not drop random games. Like the SEC's deep.
I don't see the storyline of this season being the Aggies' mythical season where they go to the playoffs and they become Cinderella, make it to
Yeah,
the quarterfinals or the semifinals, and then maybe this clock strikes midnight in the last drive of the semifinals to go to the national championship. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening with Texas Tech either. Okay, let me just put that
yeah.
out there.
They
I
look
have to
good,
say
but
it. I
I
just
don't
have to
know.
say it. But also, that's also me being a massive Joey Maguire hater. And I just hate that dude. I don't like Matt Rule because he hired Joey Maguire's son as his wide receivers coach. You know, there's some things there and some history and the personal side of it, but that's just my thing. I just don't see these two teams being the teams of um this is it. This is the season we finally turn this program around. I don't see that happening for them because I don't think they have a culture that's ready yet for
Yeah,
that. I just don't believe their players are mature enough and ready. And when they get in, yes, they won a slug match this year. They did, but it was against Notre Dame. It was a great game. Notre Dame's Notre Dame. Have they also won blowouts? They have, and have they won from behind yet? I don't think they have. I don't think they've come back from behind with a team having a meaningful lead against them. And so that's where I really want to see if Texas can stay consistent, they can finally learn to kill the will, as we said back at South Lake Carroll, which I'm surprised with Quinn being our quarterback for 2 years. He never taught this to Texas, which is kill the will. You want to get up on them, you put the boot to their neck, and you just keep pushing down, and you don't give any mercy. That's killing the will. Make them not want to play the game of football. I'm surprised Quinn never brought that mentality from South Lake, Texas, to the Longhorns, because I haven't seen that happen. I unfortunately, until otherwise noted, will not say that that will happen this year, but I truly think that this offensive line took a step in the right direction. Like me and you said in our off-camera conversation on the phone, we were one offensive line shuffle away from finding the combo to start building on. We have. I think we found the combo. We're going to build on it. We now found our running back. We're going to use him. We got to keep him healthy, though. And I think our team and Sark has already made those adjustments to a dink and dunk offense instead of his usual West Coast air raid flying circus best show on turf. We made these adjustments mid-season, guys. We made these during tough days. We sat in the mirror and looked after, getting dog walked in the park. We go to take a shower, sitting there in the fetal position for a few minutes, really hating ourselves, get up out of there, wipe off the dew on the mirror and say, you know what? Okay, I don't like what I see. I don't like that I got bloodied. I'm going to make my adjustments and I'm going to find my identity. And we did. I don't see an A&M team being able to do that in mid-game. I don't see a Texas Tech team being able to do that mid-game. I think that is where the maturity in Texas is, and that's why it's possible for us to go 10-2. But at the same time, Georgia can do those types of adjustments as well. That's why we go 9-3.
They're the
And
best at it.
if we do go 9-3, though, we're going to a bowl game. You're right. We're not making a CFP in the SEC with a 9-3, especially with our strength of schedule, because everyone's going to say what they want to say. Vanderbilt, I think, potentially could be they lose to us, they lose the rest of the season out. That could be horrible for them. Mississippi State could be the game that finally puts them away in the coffin and they piss the rest of their season away. Arkansas is Arkansas and all that goodness. I think we don't, even at 9-3, even with the amount of chaos that we would probably need, I don't think we get the nod. So, but if we do go to a bowl game, I have to say this: Sark has not won a bowl game at Texas yet. He
That's
has
true.
just a standard bowl game, hasn't won it. His team gave up on him, or his team declared for the draft, and he was left with nothing. And we lost to Washington in San Antonio in the Alamo Bowl. You know, I would like, if we go 9-3 this season, we lose to Georgia, but we beat A&M. I want to see us win the bowl game. I think that is I think if we go 9-3 and we're going to a bowl game, it's going to be to a nice bowl. We're not going to go to San Antonio. We might get to go to Nashville, which I'd love. I'd love to go to Florida or anywhere nice and tropical. I want to go somewhere fun. Vegas, please call us. Love that. You guys want a lot of Texas money coming and gambling in Vegas? I do. You know, I'd like to go somewhere to a nice bowl game. I don't want to go to a Holiday Bowl. I don't want to go to an Alamo Bowl. But on top of that, I want to see Texas win the bowl game, because then that will give me the confidence I need to look into 2026, say, this team grew up at the end of the season. This team matured, it grew up, it took their nicks, and it didn't just say, we'll wait till 2026. It says we're going to grow into 2026. That right there is what will show me confidence the rest of the season.
Yeah, two things I want to touch on that you mentioned. Um, 9-3 Texas. I don't think we get in. I don't think we probably deserve to get in, but I do think that it's a conversation worth having that a 10-2 Ole Miss gets in, right? 10-2 Ole Miss probably gets in. Same with Missouri, all these
Yeah.
SEC teams. My thing is, Ole Miss's non-con was like Tulane and Washington State. If we had that non-con, we'd be 10-2 as well because we opened at Ohio State. So not all schedules are made equal. I don't.
Well,
I
I'll just say this to kind of I got to be devil's advocate in this one. You still had we had Sam Houston,
well,
that's
yeah,
and
yeah.
UT El Paso. These are two,
No, I
and
agree.
these,
I know, but
yes, I agree though. The Ohio State though makes the non instantly takes our non-con and just says, hey, no, we're better than you. But at the same time, with how college football has grown, you kind of need these aggressive non-cons now, like Ohio State, like playing Michigan. We're gonna get Michigan next year in Austin. You kind of need these for these conversations in the later year in the later part.
yeah,
If you have that one conference loss, though, that's when you need these. But I don't think Ole Miss.
you're not
Yes,
buying
10,
it.
10-2 gets in. I just don't believe Ole Miss
Go 10
is
and
gonna
2.
is gonna go 10-2. I believe they're gonna go. I believe if Texas goes to the SEC title game, we're seeing Ole Miss. I think they beat everyone else. They just look that good. And you know what? I just really think Lane has finally found some inner peace and zen. I watched his documentary. I follow him on Instagram and Twitter now, and hearing him just still have a little bit of that asshole to him, but it's that controlled chaos asshole. He has just grown up in front of our eyes. He seems like a very fun coach. If Sark ever drops the ball to a point where we want to get rid of him and we decide to do a buyout, let's throw the bag at Lane and bring him over here because his kids will be out of school by then. If this happens to Sark, yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. If it happens, it'll be way down the road. Lane's kids will be gone. They'll be grown up. He'll have no more reason to stay planted and stationary because his kids are all grown up. Let's throw the bag at him and let's bring him in because I think Lane, as time goes on, will be a very fine wine with age. I truly do. We can say the beginning was rough, but we could also say the beginning of Sark was rough. But I think these two coordinators become coaches from Pete Carroll and Saban. I think these two guys are his two biggest prodigies or two biggest success stories in the coaching world. And I think these are the two candidates that could, compete for a legendary coaching spot like Nick.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Lane's showing me something. I don't know. Let's see if he can get over the hump, though. I kind of classify him, and albeit Ole Miss is a harder place to win than a lot of these big SEC jobs. So yeah, I like Lane a lot. One thing I want to add on, back to you mentioned Sark in the big game and the narrative that he can't win the big game. I think that this past Saturday was a big check mark in that. He's not perfect yet in those big games, but no one's ever going to be perfect. I think the narrative is whenever Sark plays a team with comparable talent in non-rivalry games. So like we're really cherry picking because like to me, I'd rather beat OU and A&M than beat Ohio State week one. Like especially if
Mm-hmm.
they're good teams like OU and A&M are. So that's a big game in my eyes. So it's kind of just a hater taken away. But I do think there's merit to that. I mean like we have a Georgia problem. At least it appears through two games, but that can change real fast. I mean, we could show up in Athens and get that win, and all of a sudden that narrative's down the toilet. But then we lost at Ohio State. The loss to Washington is the one that hurts because Ohio State felt like the better team. Honestly, Washington did too, but like on that day. But I, you know what? I'll take it back because if we beat Ohio State, we win the national championship, no doubt last year because Notre Dame was not going to beat us. If we would have beat Washington, we probably we have a chance against Michigan, but I'm not for sure that we win that game at all. So that one, in that sense, hurt. But my point is, Sark has struggled getting over the hump. But who doesn't have that struggle? Kirby Smart couldn't get over the hump. He still can't beat Bama. He did it one time, and then Ryan Day couldn't get over the hump, and until he did, Jim Harbaugh, same thing. So it's only a matter of time with Sark. He showed me a lot of promise winning that game this Saturday. He adapted the offense. He won it as an underdog against a top five team, and he handled them. So that showed maturity. That showed Sark's not a one-trick pony. He's going to evolve. He's going to get better as a coach, and hopefully he can continue to do that because there's a lot of more big games heading for that we have in the future with Sark. So I think if he can get that win in Athens, man, then we'll be really cooking with gas.
If you want to know, here's a little fun fact. I got Wikipedia up right now. The whole college football index here, encyclopedia. There's three teams out here that Sark has lost to twice in a row. Only three. Okay?
Yeah,
Washington,
yeah. The boar.
Ohio State, and Georgia. Okay? Washington, when we lost them the first time, San Antonio, bowl game. What they go do next year? They go to the national championship.
Yeah,
Okay? You're like, okay, something was in the water in Washington. Now DeBoer's at Alabama. Okay? Let's go back to, and I'll go back to earlier in that 2020 season. Who was our other big loss to our ranked opponent? Was a Nick Saban Alabama game led by Bryce Young in Austin, Texas, where everyone has agreed, including Bryce, in an off-camera interview, that he's like, I was down. The refs saved that game. Quinn gets hurt, and we have that game. And even Saban says, I had to coach my ass off to win that game. Okay, so there's that. That's a tough game to win. And then the majority of his losses in these ranked opponents was back in 2021, his 5-7 first year with the Oklahoma State, and West Virginia ranked teams. You know, I don't. Yeah, that whole 2021 season's a mulligan for a first year coach, but then immediately jumping to 8-5, then going to 12-2, then 13-3. I think Sark is a mature guy. There's not many coaches that really, we've unfortunately I wouldn't say we've even had trouble. We've just run into the teams that it's kind of like here at South Lake Carroll. South Lake Carroll loses to the team that wins the state championship every year.
yeah,
They've lost to Duncanville way back in the day. Duncanville was losing to North Shore, but that's a whole different story. That's just them being undisciplined football. Yes, Colin Simmons, I'm saying your high school had undisciplined football before you graduated with a state title ring. But that's the same thing Texas was having. Texas was running into the teams that were just the hot team that was going to go play for a national championship and so on. Because look what happened. When we go play Michigan last year, little did we know that they turned the offensive forward pass off, but Michigan was a ranked preseason team expecting to have a decent run, but they go 7-5. Okay, cool, whatever. We just were lucky we didn't have to play them when they were hot. It's just a thing. I think that's really it. Now, the question is here, is Georgia hot this year? I don't think they are. I don't think that they can continue this up, especially with how the SEC is running out, where they could take a loss at any point in time, especially with their remaining schedule. I think that's possible. I think we are the team that just knocks down A&M because guess what? When Sark plays A&M, he's 1-0.
mhm.
And A&M was a top-ranked 15 team when we played them at 5. So, that's okay, fine. Now this year we'll be 15 and they'll be 5. Let's do okay. Well, we took down 6. We'll take down a 5. Let's have a day with it because that's the standard at Texas is you win OU and you beat A&M. So with that being said, I think this team has the gall to go do it, but the question is, do they have the maturity to stay consistent and build off of it? And do they realize that they are not Alabama who can just walk off the bus and say, "Hey, we're Texas. We're going to win the game." No, it's hey, we're Texas. We're here to dominate you. We're here to play 4 quarters of, fuck you football and have a great time with it. Thankfully, our losses have been showing that. We haven't had that just, oh my God, what in the world happened? I'm trying to go back and the worst loss was the 15-30 loss to Georgia at home. Everything else was within one score. Everything else has been 4 points, 7 points, 7. Okay. Okay, this one sucked. 34-41, 9, but still, that's still less. It, I don't see this Texas team is playing good football. We're not getting blown out by 2 scores, if not very rarely. But the thing is, though, what I saw with going back to Florida is okay, can we help our defense out? Because our defense is due one more mulligan, in my opinion. They're due for one more
Yeah.
bad game. And I think that that game, unfortunately, is going to be Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
That's the game. And it's not because they play bad. It's because Diego Pavia is going to pull a Notre Dame. And this is how I'm going to say this. You're going to listen, stick with me here. This is going to be this is going to go a long way here. Notre Dame, when they played Ohio State last year, we literally saw on TV for the first 15 minutes of that game, the first quarter, we saw Notre Dame and them give everything they got on that opening drive to score that one touchdown. And
Mhm.
they gave all their energy, all their mojo, everything. They said we're dumping into this first series. We're gonna score, and that's all we need to do to win. No, sir. You need to play 3 more quarters of football, and you need to have more in the tank. They had nothing left. Diego Pavia is going to do that exact same thing. Okay, He is going to dump every bit of his energy and the will to bring his team to beat us in that game, and he's going to come up short. I hope.
Yeah. I
I
hope
hope.
too. I hope
I
too.
hope. I hope. It is at home. What better way for revenge for him, for us going to Nashville last year, than him to come to Austin and beat us in our own house? But I think our defense can hold. But that is the thing. That's where our defense is going to be the biggest thing. That loss, when they lose that game after giving everything they got, along with the loss to Bama, that makes them a two-loss SEC team. I think they would have given us everything they got, unloaded the kitchen sink. They got nothing left in the tank, and that's what starts their second, or that's what causes their midseason collapse. So they have 2 more weeks of relevance, and then they're going to go down the tubes.
Well, they do play LSU this week. They're at home and they play Missouri. So those aren't for sure wins, but I do think that they'll beat both those teams. I agree.
Hmm.
Either way, the collapse is coming. All right, Kyle, we got like 4 minutes left on this recording. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to get your just like quick predictions on the Texas Kentucky game, and the other big game this week is Georgia Ole Miss. I think it's in Oxford. So you sound like you're high on Ole Miss. I'm curious your take on that and your score prediction for Texas Kentucky. I'll give you mine real fast. I think Georgia gets it done on the road in Oxford. Um, Georgia's just finding ways to win ugly right now. Even though I think Ole Miss is really good, and I trust Kirby Smart more in this spot after losing to them last year. So I take Georgia there, and I think Texas wins in Kentucky, but I think it's going to be a ugly game. I think we're gonna a lot of the same problems are going to pop up, and we're not going to be as satisfied. But I think ultimately we win, and we're in control in the fourth quarter. So it's not all panic mode.
I'm going to give it with you as well. I like your Texas game analogy. That I think we're going to start slow again,
Yeah,
but I don't think we're going to take a whole half. I think the first quarter is going to be rough. I think we might be going down 14-7. Me and you are going to be sitting there thinking, shit, I thought this was a game I could invite friends over and talk a little bit more while we
yeah.
watch and enjoy ourselves on the couch. No, that's not the case. I'm going to have a tight butthole the rest of this game. I think we pull away in the third, but I think we give up a couple garbage time scores in the fourth. I'm going to say 49 Texas to
What?
a 49 Texas
Okay.
because I think our defense is going to show up and get us some scores. We're going to get some
Like that.
turnovers for touchdowns, and I think we're going to get some short fields because of that too. I think we're going to get some short fields in favorable field position, but I'm going to say 49 Texas, but I'm going to say they give us a very good run for money 32 Kentucky. That's where I'm talking about the start slow, garbage time stuff. Score looks high scoring, it looks close, but it does not reflect the true pattern of the game. We have control in the second and the third.
Yeah.
Now Georgia, Ole Miss. I'm gonna say money line Ole Miss. I think you're
Okay.
protecting your house. I got to give you the edge there. I think Lane is this is Lane's coming out party. This
Yeah.
is it. This is his year to win Coach of the Year, to be the guy and run the SEC. So I think that's him. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I really want to give y'all this one last thing because I really need to submit that I do have allegiance to Michigan because of some blood. Michigan plays Washington at home. I believe that it's going to be Michigan 28, Washington 21. It's going to be a close score. Whoever's going to run the ball better, which is going to be Michigan, they're going to get back on track and they're going to be ready because I need them to beat Ohio State down the road. But at the same time, Ole Miss losing to Georgia helps our theory, Matt, me and you's theory of Texas potentially going 10-2. Because if they lose to Ole Miss, Texas now has the ability to put the nails in the coffin. And when Georgia gets into those games, nail in the coffin games, they have traditionally not been successful in those types of games. So we need as much of that mental juju on our side. So we need an Ole Miss win.
I like it. I like it. Well, Damon Williams, Washington. Hey, that guy's good. Y'all might have some trouble there with Michigan, but we'll see, man. Anyways, thank y'all for watching. I know we've been on in a while, but Kyle will be on here more and more, and we're gonna get this thing rolling again. So like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one, baby. Welcome.
Welcome.